boys and girls. So in today's reading lesson, I want to teach you that when you're reading a book series that you really love, you want to share that book series with other people, like your friends or your family or whoever. One way that we can share a book series that we love with others is by writing a series introduction. Now, what is a series introduction? A series introduction basically tells a reader what the series is about. So that is what you will be doing today. You will be writing a series introduction. So now when you're writing a series introduction, you want to think of three things. One, what are the important things that the reader should know about your series? So for example, if we're looking at our Frankly Franny book series, you may want to mention something about her using nonsense words and made-up words, because if a reader starts reading this book and they start noticing all these random words that aren't real, they may be a little confused. The second part is you want to make sure that you mention what you have learned about the main character. So something that I have learned about Franny in both of our books that we've read so far is that she makes a lot of mistakes. She puts herself in situations where she may get in trouble by her teacher or her parents. So that's something that I've learned about the main character. The third thing you need to think about are what are some important details about the whole series. This is kind of similar to what are the most important things that a reader should know, but an important detail about the whole series is that Franny is always looking for a new job. In our first book, she wanted her own radio show, she wanted her own office, and then in this story, she wanted to be a food critic. And she also wanted to be a food critic because they also had offices, just like in our previous book when she wanted to be a radio show host. So as you're thinking about a series introduction, you want to remember that you're basically writing this to a friend or family member. What would you want them to know about the series to make them read the book? And I know you guys can do this because I've read your opinion writings. You guys are really good at sharing your opinions and making sure that whoever's reading your opinion writing is interested in what you're saying because you're adding lots of details. So today I want you to focus on what you would put in your series introduction for our book series Frankly Franny. In our last chapter, we have the Millers and Elliot sitting at a fancy restaurant called Blue. And Elliot and Franny look over and they see a woman eating by herself. They think it is who? Do you remember the name of the woman they think it might be? Yeah, they thought that it was Maria Cross. And Maria Cross was supposed to be the food critic that was coming into town. Now, do they know it's Maria Cross for sure? No, they don't. So they're suspecting it's her because she's sitting alone and she has something on her lap that they thought she might be writing in. So let's continue reading and see what is going to happen. Chapter 8. The thing about restaurant reviews is that we don't know how to write them. We had never even read one before. We were stupefied. Elliot was looking around the restaurant and I could see his brain trying to find words to describe everything. I stared at all the food trying to think of words to describe salad. I looked down at what I had so far. Salad. I looked over and saw what Elliot had written down so far. Crowded. This was not a good sign. I looked over at Maria Cross. Then I looked at Elliot. We have to see what's on her pad, I told him. Elliot nodded in agreement. Maria Cross would certainly have food descriptions on her pad that would nevertheless help us get started. That's when I got an unusual idea. I have to go to the bathroom, I said. Me too, Elliot said. Go together and wait for each other, please, my mom said with her face channel turned to strict. Maria Cross's table was on the way to the bathroom. Elliot and I tried to get close so we could see her pad as we passed by. But when we got too close, we banged right into her table. Her glass wobbled and she looked up from her lap and made a mad face at us. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It belonged to my dad. He leaned over and said to Maria Cross, I am so sorry about that. That's all right, she said, in a really high kind of voice. You're supposed to be on your way to the bathroom, he said. Please use it and come right back to our table. Is that understood? We said that we did understand, and then we walked directly towards the bathroom. Right when we reached the bathroom area, my eyeballs got distractified. The kitchen was right there, and we could see exactly right inside it because there was no door. There were a bajillion people rushing around in there. Some people were yelling in another language, and other people were cooking a bajillion things at once. There was a long table where waiters were putting plates with fancy food and also bread baskets and pitchers of waters. Something on one of the plates looked a little weird. I took a couple steps closer, and that is when I saw the most news-breaking story of ever. I nudged Elliot and pointed towards the plate. When he saw the plate, he almost fainted. You will not in 100 years believe what we saw in that kitchen on that plate. What do you guys think is on that plate? Bugs. My eyeballs weren't even seeing things wrong. We stepped a little bit closer, and sure enough, we saw the little bug heads popping out of their bug shells. Then a waiter came over and poured warm butter all over them, picked up the plate, and brought them to serve it to someone. Should we tell someone? I asked Elliot. I don't know, he answered. Someone is about to eat buttered bugs without even knowing it. Elliot just stood there with his eyes bugging all over the plate. He didn't know what to do either. We both stuck our heads back in the kitchen and nearly fell over when a couple of waiters came running out yelling, "Hot plates, very hot plates." They seemed very busy, Elliot said. He was right. I didn't want to interrupt them. So we went back to our table before my dad decided to arrest us and put us in jail. Our main course had already been served. My parents seemed a little angry at us. Elliot and I sat down and I studied our plates for bugs. What in the world were you two thinking? My mother asked as she cut into our chicken. We didn't mean to get so close to her table, I explained. It just sort of happened that way, Elliot added. You need to leave her alone and let her write her review. If that's even what she's doing, my mom said. I looked at my mom's plate and then at my dad's to make sure there were no bugs on them. There weren't, but I was very concerned that someone in the restaurant would have bugs on their plate. That is when I got the most fantastical idea. I wrote something down on a piece of notebook paper, ripped it out, and handed it to Elliot. Let's write a note to Maria Cross and tell her about the bugs. If anyone could stop people from eating bugs, it was Maria Cross. Elliot read my note and looked at me with a face that said, Franny, you are a genius of the earth. I handed Elliot the pad because he has very good handwriting. That is why he is my secretary. Then I whispered each sentence to him, and he wrote down every single word I said in the very strictest letters. We know you are here. We won't tell anyone. We saw a waiter pour butter on a plate of insects and then bring it out to a table. Someone in the restaurant is now eating a dinner with bugs on their plate. It could be you. When he was done, he showed it to me, and I was very impressified with the way that it looked. He was very impressified with how it sounded. Then I handed it back, and he added, Thank you, the secret people. I gave him the most gigantic smile about the last line. Then I wondered how we were supposed to get this note to her. I have to go to the bathroom again, I told my mom. Elliot looked confused. You just went, my mom said. I know, but I couldn't go. I need to try again, I said. Quickly, please, my dad said. I got up and brought the pad with me. When I reached the bathroom, I tore the note off the pad of paper and folded it in half so no one could read it. Then I tugged on a waiter's sleeve, and when he bent down, I asked him if he would take the note to someone. Who? He asked me. I couldn't tell him her name because I wasn't supposed to let anyone know that Maria Cross, famous restaurant reviewer of the world, was here, and I had to point, which I felt really bad about because pointing is rude. Her, I said, pointing to Maria Cross. The waiter nodded and took the note from me. Then I actually did have to go to the bathroom. The bathroom was very fancy. It had music playing in it and an actual waterfall coming down a wall. There were a lot of different sprays on the shelves, so I sprayed one to see what it smelled like. Roses. The toilet didn't flush by itself like the unusual toilets. The toilets didn't flush by itself like the usual toilets in restaurants did. Instead, this one had a flusher that hung down from the ceiling on a chain. It took me forever 10 minutes to figure out I was supposed to pull it in order to get to flush. When I went back to our table, I saw the waiter walk over to Maria Cross's table. I nudged Elliot and we both turned as she opened the note, read it, and then at the top of her lungs, and I am not even making this up, she screamed, grabbed her purse and her coat, and ran out of the restaurant. Everyone stopped eating and watched her. When she got to the door, she banged into a lady and looked right in her face and yelled something that sounded like bugs. Then that lady shrieked, ran to her table, and whispered something in her husband's ear. They quickly got up and left too. And that is when things started to go not so right. Suddenly, the customers in front of the restaurant were shrieking and jumping up and yelling for their checks. The waiters and chefs were running out trying to calm everyone down, but it didn't seem to work because before we even knew it, the front part of the restaurant was nearly empty. My parents looked very confused. My dad turned to my mom. "What did she say?" "I don't know," my mom answered. "Rugs?" Then they looked at me and Elliot like we had something to do with it. "What?" I asked them. "Nothing," my mom said. "Just looking. Can't I just look at you?" And asked with an "I'm not really just looking at you. I'm suspicious that you are up to no good" face. That felt like a trick question, so I looked at Elliot, who shrugged, and then I looked back at my parents and said, "I guess so," and then added, "But I don't have to like it one bit." And that is where we're going to stop reading for today. Boys and girls, remember today we're just focusing on how we can share a series we love with others. I hope you have a wonderful day, stay safe and healthy, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.